In October 2024, a quarter-pounder gave 104 people E. coli poisoning across 14 states, and one person died. The source was not the beef. It was sliced onions from a supplier called Taylor Farms. That single detail changed how food safety investigators look at fast food forever, because the danger was hiding somewhere nobody checks. 12 major American chains have quietly built a pattern of these failures, one supplier and one lawsuit at a time. 4 chains have managed to avoid it almost completely, and the reason why is not luck. This is the full list, the evidence behind each one, and the 4 brands that actually earned their reputation. Most people assume fast food safety comes down to how clean the kitchen looks. The real story is about who owns the chain, how far the ingredients travel, and how thin the profit margin is by the time it reaches your tray. 90% of the people sickened in the 2024 McDonald's outbreak had eaten there, and most had ordered the exact sandwich under investigation. McDonald's runs roughly 14,000 locations in the United States, which makes it the single most trafficked chain in the country. The Shiga toxin-producing E. coli traced back to slivered onions, and Taylor Farms recalled the affected lots on October 22, 2024. For weeks, social media assumed the beef patties were contaminated, when the actual chain of custody pointed to a vegetable supplier 3 steps removed from the kitchen. That confusion is the exact problem critics point to. When a supply chain runs through that many hands, even health officials struggle to trace where the danger started. Wendy's had its own outbreak 2 years earlier, in August 2022, when the CDC confirmed E. coli O157, H7 sickened about 97 people across 6 states. Wendy's pulled romaine lettuce from sandwiches in the affected states on August 19, as a precaution, before any official cause was confirmed. Here is the unsettling part. The CDC's final report never confirmed romaine as the actual source, because too few meals were documented in enough detail. No meat recall was ever issued, and to this day, the true cause of that outbreak has never been made public. Burger King has its own transparency problem, stretching back to a 2013 Europe-wide scandal where horse DNA was found in frozen beef burgers across the supply chain. The chain said its American products were unaffected, but it was also one of the last major burger brands to publish a full ingredient list, only doing so in the late 2010s, years after McDonald's already had. Taco Bell faced a federal class action lawsuit in January 2011 after it was accused of calling its beef filling beef, when it contained added filler and sodium phosphate. Taco Bell won that case by proving the product met USDA's legal definition of beef. But by August 2023, a new lawsuit in California accused the chain of overstating the amount of beef and beans in 5 different menu items. Even something as small as their mild sauce carries about 35 milligrams of sodium per packet, and 2 packets on multiple tacos a day adds up fast. Subway's tuna became a national story in January 2021, after a newspaper sent 60 inches of tuna salad from 3 Los Angeles locations to a lab for DNA testing. The lab reported no amplifiable tuna DNA in the sample, which triggered a federal lawsuit that survived a motion to dismiss in July 2022, before Subway won the case in late 2024. Arby's is currently fighting a 2023 federal lawsuit in Illinois, accusing it of showing roughly twice as much meat in its ads as it actually serves in the sandwich, a case that survived dismissal in 2025. Its regular roast beef sandwich alone routinely crosses 1,000 milligrams of sodium, which is one of the highest per item sodium loads in the entire industry. Dairy Queen, owned by Berkshire Hathaway, got pulled into the 2024 ice cream recall wave, when Listeria monocytogenes contamination hit more than a dozen brands and over 110,000 cases across 23 states. Listeria kills roughly 260 Americans every year, and it survives in cold temperatures, which makes soft-serve dispensing equipment a particularly dangerous place for it to hide. KFC's parent company, Yum! Brands, promised in 2017 that all its chicken would be raised without antibiotics important to human medicine by the end of that year. By 2025, KFC had quietly softened that promise, and back in 2012, a Reuters investigation found 8 out of 19 chicken samples from Yum suppliers in China carried antibiotic residues above the legal limit. Popeyes is facing a 2025 Ontario lawsuit from a former supplier, who claims the chain bought unauthorized chicken that had been stored in residential garages before reaching restaurants. Popeyes disputes the claim, but it reopened old concerns from the 2019 chicken sandwich launch, when demand outpaced the supply chain and backup suppliers were not always properly checked. Sonic has racked up a long list of local inspection failures, including one California location that scored 46 out of 100 after inspectors found rat droppings in the lime container. Because most Sonic locations are franchised, the parent company has only indirect control over whether each individual drive-in actually follows sanitation rules day to day. Jack in the Box is the reason modern meat inspection exists at all. Between November 1992 and February 1993, undercooked burgers sickened roughly 732 people and killed 4 children. That outbreak forced the USDA to officially declare E. coli O157, H7 an adulterant in ground beef, and it created the hacked safety plans every meat processor now follows. Checkers and Rallies do not have one giant outbreak on their record, but their drive-through-only kitchens are cramped, and regional health rankings consistently place them among the chains with the most priority violations per inspection. So why does this keep happening across so many different brands, at so many different scales? It comes down to 3 structural forces critics keep pointing back to, no matter which chain gets caught next. Margins are thin, and franchisee labor is thin, so any decision that saves money tends to hit ingredient quality first, long before corporate policy ever catches up. Frozen, pre-portioned supply chains protect chains from local sourcing liability, but they also stretch the chain of custody, which is exactly why the Wendy's 2022 outbreak was never officially solved. And sodium, sugar, and refined carbs are cheap to store and hard to spoil, which is why a completely normal-looking fast food meal can quietly blow past your entire daily recommended limit for one nutrient in a single sitting. Now here are the 4 chains that have actually built a different reputation, and the specific reasons why. Sweetgreen, founded in 2007, was one of the first national chains to make ingredient sourcing part of its actual brand, publishing seasonal menus and committing publicly to local farm sourcing. It also runs assembly line kitchens built for fresh, whole food prep, with no deep fry line anywhere in the building. Chipotle is not spotless. Between 2015 and 2018, it was tied to 5 separate outbreaks involving E. coli, salmonella, norovirus, and a hepatitis a case linked to one Boston location. It paid a $25 million fine in April 2020 as part of a federal agreement, and it responded by investing heavily in food safety infrastructure and independent audits, which has slowly rebuilt consumer trust. Chick-fil-A has had its own issues, including a February 2024 recall of Polynesian sauce cups over undeclared wheat and soy, and a quiet 2024 walkback of its 10-year "no antibiotics ever" promise. But it rarely sees the kind of outbreak-level chaos that hits the major burger chains, and its customer service culture keeps its reputation largely intact. In-N-Out is the strongest example on this entire list. It is privately owned, family-run, and has expanded so slowly on purpose that it still only operates around 400 locations, all company-run, with 0 franchising. It never freezes its beef. It sources potatoes and buns from a small, long-term list of suppliers, and it operates in only a handful of western states plus Texas. Industry critics use In-N-Out as living proof that fast food can move fast without cutting the same corners every other chain on this list has cut. The pattern across all 12 broken chains is almost identical every time. A supply chain gets stretched to save money, and the traceability gets weaker exactly when it matters most. The pattern across the 4 trusted names is also identical: shorter supply chains, fewer hands touching the food, and ownership that treats sourcing as a brand asset instead of a cost to cut. Ownership predicts behavior more reliably than marketing ever will. And that single idea is the entire argument behind this list. Public interest food safety groups have been saying the same 3 things for 2 decades. Read the ingredient list, check your county's restaurant inspection history, and pay attention to who actually owns the chain. None of that takes more than a few minutes, and it tells you more than any advertisement ever will. If you want to see exactly how these ownership groups quietly control dozens of brands you'd never guess are connected, that breakdown is waiting in the next video. It traces the private equity firms and parent companies sitting behind almost every name on this list, and how far their influence actually reaches. Watch that one next, because once you see the ownership map, you will never look at a drive-through menu the same way again.